you can get Sons of Patriarchy completely ad-free on Apple Podcasts for $4.99 per month or $44.99 per year. This applies to our entire back catalog and every upcoming episode completely ad-free. Listening without interruption. If you don't mind the ads, you can still listen to the series for free on any of your favorite podcast platforms. This revenue helps support Outreach Idaho and helps pay the bills of the series. Now, on to the episode. Quick announcement before we start this episode. We've launched our website and initial line of merch. Go to sonsofpatriarchy.com and pick up a t-shirt, a sticker, or a crew neck fleece, or all three. And wait till you see our design. We went bold. A link to the website is in our show notes, or simply type sonsofpatriarchy.com into your search bar. Now, on with today's conversation. We have two witnesses to a case in the Northeast and the OPC. And so we're going to talk about not just an inappropriate, but as it's been described before, disgusting relationship. If people had heard of our episodes profiling Boyd Miller, late January, early February, this is similar to that, but worse, if people can imagine what that looks like. So we've got two people here, both Brittany and Chase. And if I could ask you guys first to describe this church that you guys first started, maybe when you first started going there, how are you introduced to the OPC on the front end? We'll start, Brittany, if you want to start with that, how you ended up at this OPC in the first place.
Yeah, so my mom and mom were super close, and I were super close. And because we were kind of always doing meals together, whatever, his mom and my mom would kind of gang up on him and try to get him saved. And eventually he did end up, accepting Jesus. And at that point, he wanted to start going to church. And so we decided to go to church where their family was going to church. And that's kind of how we ended up there. Um, yeah.
All right. And then Chase, how'd you get introduced to this OPC?
I was about 10, and my family came to follow another family from another church. We had a tight-knit group of people that were at the church that we were at, and it was much more evangelical, much more energetic, and we moved to this church when they kind of decided that they want to make this change. My parents were very close to that, and did Bible study together since I can remember. So the mutual decision to move to Calvary.
Okay. If one of you can describe, so there's a few people in the church. What's the church's name? The pastor's name of this church, and then the individual under the microscope as well. So like who are some of the main people that we're talking about for this?
So the
I
pastor,
would say Tom Troborst.
Okay. And then Nathan Lawrence is the guy's last name.
yeah, Nathan Lawrence. And I believe he followed family there as well. He did not go there originally. My family and his family had kind of been longtime, I guess, friends with him, because he was our violin teacher when we were little. And, his mom again had kind of brought him to a more, I guess, a more serious faith or desire to have a faith. And so, as Nathan supposedly reached that level, he followed them to Calvary as well. So we all kind of started going to church there, I think roughly the same time, within a year of each other, probably.
Okay. And what's the time frame of this? I mean, we'll talk about everything that occurred, but from kind of the beginning of this with Nathan to the end of it.
Um, I Chase, you might know better than I. I feel like their courtship started roughly 2001. I think it was the year she turned 15, which would have been 2001, but I could be off by a little bit. Um,
That was probably accurate. The formal courtship, at
yeah.
least,
Yeah, no,
because there's a large amount of time before that where it was well known that it was coming. It would
right,
be.
right. Like it wasn't even like a secret it was supposed to happen. They were just basically trying to wait until it was some semblance of publicly acceptable for them to be together.
Yep.
But even, at least a year before, everybody knew that like that was the expectation. And I remember her telling me right around the beginning of her courtship with him, um, this is when we were still really good friends, that he had kind of talked to her about it before he went to her parents and just kind of let her know that he was planning on formally asking to court her. And her words to me at that point where he said that he had had his eye on her for some time at that point.
Yep.
And that was well known as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Right,
Yep.
right. And like, at that point she was 14. He would have been 26 and he'd had his eye on her for quite some time. And
Yep.
it was no secret and it was just expected and somehow condoned. It was really wild.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's why we're talking about this since it's a patriarchy. This is it's not just a young dude and another young girl, 14, 15 years old, who are talking to each other and looking at dating. It's an older, mid, late 20s man and a younger teens, barely preteenish girl,
Yeah.
and whatever kind of agency she has. And so even before this, if you could paint a picture of the culture of this church, um, the the stuff that's taught, how men and women are viewed, the elders, the pastor, some of the theology that's taught here too. Paint a picture of what we're walking into when we come to a Nathan.
It was extremely patriarchal, really firm gender roles. Um, like women couldn't teach men at all. I don't think I can even remember. I feel like even once like kids got to like to be around the time they were teenagers, I don't think I can recall a woman being able to teach in like a group that age level that had boys in it, just because women were so expected to be so subservient. And it would have been like a disrespect for women to be teaching men. It, I guess that's the best I could say about it is very strict gender roles. Women weren't really allowed to be in charge of anything that wasn't like child rearing or the kitchen.
Gotcha. Chase, anything
Yes.
to add to that?
Yes. Again, my experience was a little bit different. I felt all those things, but I don't even know that I was aware of what they meant, because it was so out there for me at the time. I'm talking about from the ages of maybe 11 to 16, had been my experience, and seeing these gender roles locked in the way they were, and seeing fathers dictating what their daughters wear and how they sit and who they
Mhm.
sit near, and uh, unnecessary levels of control, and almost have a 1984-ish feel where everyone's held to a standard by everyone else around you. It's not your creator you're responsible to. It's making sure you're doing the right things around the right people and letting people know if they're not doing the right things. And it was not done in um, uplifting, constructive way. It was kind of in a way to try and pull people back into a little group and
Like a
keep people
cult.
doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Yep.
that's the word.
Yep. You were searching for it. I don't know if you're going to say it or not, but I'll
It
put.
was almost there.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So you guys sound like you're describing a cult.
Yeah.
Pretty
And
much.
so the pastor Tom, describe Tom, Reverend Chobers. What was he like? What kind of culture? I mean, this is obviously the culture of his church. What was he like as both a pastor, as a person, as a human? Paint a little picture of him too.
Oh, I mean, I always thought he was a little bit weird. Um, just again, very, very strict. Um, and yeah, very strict and just very judgmental, but it was always kind of posited as if it was like coming from love, like a place of love. Um, but then like you'd hear the way he'd actually talk about people kind of off to the side, and it's very judgmental, especially towards, women and girls.
The way he'd
Um,
speak to his wife in particular.
yeah, 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 yeah. But I can remember one of our mutual friends who was also there. I guess she went to him like kind of concerned about the way my dad was with me. And he had basically told her, well, like, what do you expect? Like, she's not respectable because A, B, and C, because I didn't always conform to the expectations. And so because of that, I wasn't respectable. And so, like, of course, my dad treated me the way he did. And, he had no problem saying that or thinking that way. And it was just like, basically condoning at the very least, mental abuse because, well, if I wasn't good enough, I didn't deserve to be treated well by my dad. Um, but yeah, he was always just a little bit odd, um, and definitely doesn't like women.
Mhm. That's people are listening to this. We're not sure when this is gonna air. Pretty soon. It'll be sometime in May. Um, but right now, Reverend Tom is under trial in the Northeast for particularly how he has viewed or treated women, which is saying something in the OPC when somebody's under trial for how they're treating women. Chase, anything to add to the person himself? We'll talk about Nathan as well, but about Reverend Tom.
Yes, I I can feel people's energy pretty easily,
Hmm.
and even as a child, I had a repulsive effect to his energy. Um, Brittany's accurate when she says that he was weird, and his character and the way that he acted was a manipulation tactic most of the time. And I could see through that then, and it seemed black and white to me. And the struggle for me was I was young and uh, I couldn't have that discussion with him when I was receiving information from him or interactions from him, and it polarized the way that I viewed him and his leadership in the church. Um, Mostly because it all of the things Brittany says is 100% accurate. His tone and temper would change, and you'd feel admonished or scolded, and very easily. Uh, there's almost no kindness. You'd expect kindness. I feel my experience with the previous pastor of that church was excellent.
Hmm.
Mm.
Um, and he was a mentor to me. I took Greek classes with him. I babysat for his kids. Ate dinner with his family all the time, and he was a positive influence in my life and someone I remember fondly. And you'd expect that should be the same, at least a modicum of that, but it was not in any way. And I think that really contributed to me no longer pursuing a route of faith.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Um, so when, so you guys joined this church. You had seen the previous pastor there. When did things go from, and we can feel free to bring in story and anything else as well. Obviously, this is folk story, um, with Nathan, but also on Tom himself because he's under trial in the OPC. But when did it go from, hey, this place is strict. I feel constricted. I feel confined. It's there's no joy here that I'm being looked at. I'm under a microscope. I have to act a certain way, be a certain way, believe certain things, or else I'll be questioned, or else I might be disciplined, or abuse is going under the rug and it's not being looked at. When it go from, hey, this culture is weird and strange and strict to, oh, this things are like things are either borderline illegal or like this is downright illegal. And why aren't people taking this seriously? When did that start happening at this church? Whether it be with Nathan pursuing a relationship with whatever Tom may have been doing. Um, let's discuss when did it go from weird to this is bad. This is not just a culture. This should be in criminal courts, or this should be like the OPC should be doing something about this.
I
Yeah.
would say the
Okay.
minute that relationship went public was when I realized that it was systemic. It's not a localized thing. It's just a systemic issue for this church and people going along with it, from the leadership to the people going along with it.
Maybe.
I wish I could say it happened that early for me. I was so steeped in it. And again, my experience was different from Chase's in that my family really, really bought into all of the bullshit with the gender roles and the women and girls needing to be submissive and always respectful, unconditionally respectful. Um, that it like I felt like it was not okay. But I didn't really I didn't really think it was like horribly wrong. There was something about it that didn't sit right with me, but it wasn't really until I got out of the environment and kind of had a chance to clear my head of all the bullshit that I was like, wait a second, like this whole thing is messed up. This whole thing is wrong. This whole thing is horrible. Um, so it was, I stopped going to the church when I was 19 or so. And it was when I, got out of it and just kind of started hearing more stories from other people that I was just like, okay, this is not just me not liking what's going on here. There's like something actually wrong.
So you said this relationship became public when she was 15. So when did it start? That's when people heard about this, but how young was when Nathan started pursuing her? How old was Nathan? How known was this in the church? Were people aware of this? And if they were aware of this, what did they think about it? So when did it start? How old were both and Nathan?
Um, well, it was kind of obvious well before they started officially courting that he was interested. And, you know, and she was interested as well, but she was a child.
Yeah. When you're 13, how
Literally,
interested?
literally a child.
Yep.
It's not that it's okay, but like girls have girlish fantasies, and he was a mentor, and he
Yeah.
was an older cute guy who they spent a lot of time together. So he was his violin teacher, they had gigs together. It was just so like, not that it was okay that she was
Yeah, but it,
interested, but
it
that,
also
that
says
was more
something about
understandable. She
Nathan
was a
too.
child, but like
Yeah.
I would say easily by the time she was 13, it was
Yeah.
obvious he reciprocated those feelings and like was serious about pursuing them. Um,
How old was he at that point?
If she was 13, he would have been 25.
Okay, so about double her age. Yeah.
Yeah. Yup. Yep. I think he's like just shy of 12 years older than her.
Okay.
Um, and so, and
Which to
again,
say is not like it's not mentally healthy for a 25-year-old to be sexually interested in a 13-year-old prepubescent girl.
no, no, not at
And
all.
how long did they know each other, Brittany? Because it was it was before that they knew each other, right?
Yeah. So so he and I both played violin when we were younger, and he was our violin teacher. And,
Okay,
I
so
would
before
say,
even the relationship started.
yeah, so I would say at least from the time she was 11 or 12, she was taking violin lessons with him.
So it's conceivable that when she was 11 or 12, he had his eye on her.
Hmm. Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
And he
Yep.
was 20, if you backtrack to, he's 23, so he's a college graduate,
Hmm.
Yes.
sexually
Yeah.
interested in 11, 12-year-old, and then sort of made things official at 13 and then public at 15.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yes.
it was kind of like totally undeclared, but like definitely understood that the intention was there by the time she was like 13 and a half, 14 for sure. And then I think like between 14 and 15 is when he talked to her parents about wanting to make it official. And they're like, well, we got to wait till she's old enough. I'm paraphrasing, of course, I'm paraphrasing. But basically,
Yeah.
he talked to them and they're like, well, why don't we wait until she's a little older to make it official? And I think it was like right around her 15th birthday
And he
is
would have
when,
been 27-ish at that point.
yes, yep, late 26, 27 at that point. Um, and it was, they were like, what's the it felt like they were like, what's the youngest possible age we can try to make this okay? It was
That's
like,
exactly how it went.
Huh.
It's 100% how it went.
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. If people are wondering why, like, so we get comments on Sons of Patriarchy that when we laugh, we're not taking this seriously. But sometimes it's like, it's too beyond your comprehension that the only human way of responding to this stuff is like guffawing and laughing. Is like,
Yeah.
how is this even
Yeah.
possible?
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
it's incomprehensible.
Yeah. So you as her friends, what was that like seeing talking to an older, I mean, he's a full grown adult who you're not thinking this as a kid. You're just thinking he's like, I'm assuming you're just like he's an older guy and she's interested in him and he's interested in her, but now thinking back, so like no, he has some serious mental stuff that he has to work through.
Yeah.
I mean that's you can't like he has pedophilia stuff that he has to work through.
Yeah.
That's
That's
some serious
absolutely true.
mental stuff that he has to work through that you don't think of as a kid, but older adults in the congregation should have been thinking. So what were you to as witnesses to this growing up? And that's what people may come around. It's like, well, why didn't you guys say anything at this point? Why aren't you guys talking to leadership? Why weren't you guys talking to government officials? Why weren't you guys reaching out? But like you said, this is the culture at the church. Why would you think anything differently
Right.
at the
Right.
church?
Exactly. It's like at the time, again, you're so steeped in it, you're like, well, her father is her ultimate authority. And if her father's okay with it, then it must be okay. And the pastor knows about it and he's their ultimate authority. And if he's okay with it, then it must be okay. There was almost like there was no awareness that there needed to be pushback because all of the proper authorities knew about it and were like sanctioned it. So like there was no need to push back because everybody who needed to be okay with it was.
Hmm.
Yes. That and the culture they built around it kind of made it okay because they were doing it the structured way
Hmm.
that was known to the church. Uh, it felt like it was a forensic case being forged almost. Uh, it's something that shouldn't be, can be if we do it this way.
Okay. Um, so how well known was this relationship between Nathan and especially so with Tom, with the church leadership and other leaders at Calvary OPC?
Well, I think from the minute that he got official permission to court her, I think from then on it was like complete public knowledge. Like everybody knew, there was no
Yes.
secret about it.
Okay. And what what did they think? It's were they like, "Hey, man, you're 27, you're dating a 15-year-old. Maybe you shouldn't do this." And either date somebody your own age or figure out if you got something going on in your own mind that you need to work through before pursuing somebody because you're dating a girl who's underage, under the age of consent, and doing other things with her as well.
I
I
honestly,
think it's that same thing that Brittany's talking about.
yeah, and
Go ahead, Brittany.
I I don't know if it's maybe because I had such a small circle, even within the church. Um, I never heard anybody even question it at all, except for one of older sisters. Um, she she's the only person I heard push back like at all, and it was um like at a family party at his house, and we were all outside playing volleyball, and she just like, Nathan, there's a word for men who are interested in little girls. It's called a pedophile.
Yep.
She was the only person I had ever heard up until that point have any kind of like real pushback. I never heard it from anybody at the church. Everybody was just, thrilled that a young Christian couple was about to get, married and do the right thing and fulfill their destiny and all that stuff. Just insane. It's
Because they claimed it was being done the right way.
right, right. Well, you're not
And like she
dating, you're not
said,
doing it the
through the
worldly
right
way, you're
authority.
courting.
Yeah. It's this and this gets
As long
even
as it's out in the open and known, it's okay.
yeah, this gets even more disgusting and gross. Um, if you don't want to go into it, that is perfectly fine. But what now looking back, some of the things that you didn't see that were going on behind the scenes, either that Nathan was pushing or Nathan was expecting, anything that you wouldn't have known back then, you couldn't have known, but now looking back or being told, you're like, oh, this was going on then, and I had no idea.
Well, she did tell me, again, years later that,
Yeah.
but now that we're talking, it did always strike me as kind of odd how much time, considering again, the high control environment and just the expectations of courtship and, staying physically pure until marriage, how much time they were allowed to spend alone together.
Hmm.
Because
And it was known that they were spending this time alone together.
yeah, like they would drive places together a lot where it was literally just the two of them, and who knows like what they were doing while they were wherever they were, or what they were doing on the way home, or anything. So that was one thing that did always strike me as kind of odd, is like how much time they were allowed to spend together unsupervised. Because again, the expectation of remaining completely pure until marriage. I mean, when I was courting in that same church, I wasn't even allowed to hold hands with or hug the guy that I was engaged to. And then here she was, just like alone together all of the time.
Hmm. Why why is that? I mean, I've reading some of the statements, and that's what you expect from these high control environments is the male female relationships are policed to a degree, where you aren't given alone time, you aren't given time to get to know each other, and yet it does seem like they were given kind of carte blanche, like you guys are heading towards marriage, and Nathan really wants this, and yeah, there's a huge age gap, and this is basically pedophile, but you guys can do whatever you want to do. You guys can pursue this stuff, and we won't say a word about it. Where's the disconnect between kind of heavy purity culture, high control environment, courtship, and yet Nathan towards and kind of do whatever he wanted.
I really don't know. Chase, can you speak to me?
Um, to me, it really did feel strongly that it was set up the right way, and uh, to me, it seemed almost like um, the manner in which Nathan obtained his blessing gave him um, some kind of moral superiority that kind of kept the bad off, kept the ick off. Um,
Mm.
it felt like the lack of effort to keep it quiet or um, hidden was spoke volumes because it was so rapidly accepted, um, so wholesalely accepted. And I think a lot of people just saw everyone around them nodding and going, "Oh, okay, yeah, nice," and did the same thing. Um, but it was wholly obvious from the outset that this was from the outset, the absolute outset, that this was wrong and should not have been happening. And especially as Brittany's saying, because the rules were different. It was almost because he had essentially almost like a dowry style wedding where he'd arranged this wedding and it kind of made her his before accountability set in.
Do you think there was some aspect too, like maybe just because, like what you said with the moral superiority, where it was just because they were doing all of the right things and checking all of the proverbial boxes that they were just sort of, it was assumed he was being morally good and
Yes.
they were doing the right things just because all of the outwardly all of the right boxes were being ticked for like being a good guy and doing things the right way and yada yada. So they was just kind of assumed that they were being good.
Right. And this is courtship. It's not dating. No one ever touches each other in courtship. They're being watched. They have good parents. They're in a good church. Everything's fine, right? Everything's fine, right? But it's not. No one looked under the hood or
Yeah.
pulled it all the way open. It was there. It was there for the seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
No, it is what it
didn't
is.
your mom walk in on them one time?
Yes. And this is another instance of my family kind of being on the outside. My parents were absolutely appalled, but who do you talk to when
When the whole
the
community is like, but this is fine.
right? And they didn't know how deep it went, but it's I think that caused some problems between what used to be a pretty solid relationship between my family and family. Um, our mothers had words multiple times, and I think that kind of sealed the deal um, for my mother. Um, the hypocrisy of it, uh, it was kind of immeasurable.
So they had a wedding planned. Was it the moment that turned 16? So it went public when she was 15. Um, am I reading this right, or how did this work? What was Nathan's plan of making this official?
I I feel bad. I honestly I can't remember the exact timeline. I think they went public the courtship right around her 15th birthday. They got engaged right around her 16th birthday, and they were basically supposed to get married, I think, within like a week of her 17th birthday.
Okay.
I think. Um, at first I thought it was married when she was 16, but now I think it was married at 17. But either way, still minor.
Still underage, doesn't
Still
matter.
a minor.
And he's nearing his 30s.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, it was understood from the moment they entered courtship that they were going to be getting married. Like that's kind of just the assumption with courtship is like pre-engagement engagement. Um, it's just assumed if you're courting this person, you are going to marry them. Um, so I don't, again, that's around the time I kind of fell apart. So I don't remember like all the wedding planning stuff, but I feel like everything kind of hit the fan right about a month before the wedding was to take place.
Mhm. What happened before the wedding was supposed to take place?
Um, And again, I heard all of this after the fact. I had just heard that something happened and it was being called off. Well, at first I was told it was being um, postponed. And just from what I've heard after it, I'm wondering if like that's what they were telling people because they were going to try to force her into it anyway. Um, but
And Trailburst was supposed to officiate this, correct?
I believe so. Chase, do you know for sure?
I believe he was. I believe he was because I think the plans had already really been made. Like he was saying, plans had pretty much already been made for this thing when it was planned or when it was brought up. Um, and they were very, very deep in the church, uh, and had the support of the Tom and the session.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, and I also read too somewhere, and I don't know the timing of these events. I'm not sure if you guys can speak to the timing of these events too. So obviously Nathan had pursued her for a relationship when she was underage. I also read somewhere, and maybe Chase, this is in your impact statement too, um, that Tom may have been interested in as well in some capacity.
Yes. A lot of my experience with these details that we've been discussing come from um, dating after around the age of 17.
After all this stuff had happened.
And
Yeah.
yes, and almost immediately after.
Hmm.
And I remember it was a lot.
Yeah. Um, so what, I mean, after this fell through, and thank the Lord, this never happened. Um, when, or let me ask, not when, did the church ever recognize that this was pedophilia and not just like, oh, an older man pursuing a younger girl? Did the church at any point look back and say, like, hey, maybe we messed up on this. Maybe we should have said something. Maybe we should have broken this up. Maybe what Nathan was pursuing with her was criminal, and maybe we should have done something about this. Was there any point, even up to now, where the church is like, hey, let's talk about this. We screwed up.
Not that I'm aware.
Nothing that I ever heard.
Okay.
I mean, I know like, Chase and I and, our peers, now that we're adults, you know, we clearly see it and
Yeah.
we can call it out for what it is, but like none of us are there because we all left a long time ago.
Yeah.
Um, so like they don't want to hear anything we have to say anyway. Um, but like my parents, I don't know if they were just ignoring it or blissfully unaware or what, but I had brought it up to my dad specifically like many years later. Um, and he seemed completely unaware that he was that much older than her. And so it wouldn't have occurred to him to call it out as pedophilia because he didn't realize there was that much of an age difference. And I'm like, how do you not know? It's clearly obvious.
That right there.
Yes, it's not like he looked like a child. It's not like she looked like a full-grown woman. Like there was obvious like age difference there.
Mhm.
Even if you didn't know that it was 12 years, even if it was only 5 years, it was still completely unacceptable, but it wasn't, it was 12 and it
Mhm.
was obvious. So I honestly, I don't know what the adults were doing or thinking
Mhm.
because there wasn't, as far as I know, there was never any pushback from anybody.
Mhm. Chase, anything to add to that?
I'm gonna agree. I didn't hear any. It's not even like there was a debriefing or kind of where it was talked about or mentioned. I left soon after all of this went down, very soon after. But it was still actually that brings me to mind the after the schism that caused the uh, engagement to be put on hold, she was sent away to be reformed.
To be what was that?
By
Sorry, I missed it.
sent away to be reformed.
Reformed. Okay. What does that mean?
Um, I believe the intent was to save her soul, to pull her back into the fold, to reestablish
Save herself from
uh,
what?
re- from the absolute terrible sin of not wanting to be with Nathan.
Oh, this is okay. Gotcha. I was trying to figure out what did she do wrong. It seems like this was right, but I guess.
Well, a broken engagement is a broken oath, and if you're not keeping your word, that's lying, and
Oh, so
lying.
so they blamed for breaking, like for.
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. So I'm assuming this is the church leadership is contacting after the broken engagement. It's like, hey, you broke your oath to Nathan. You have to do some penance of some sort. We got to make sure you're a true firm believer because a 16-year-old who doesn't want to marry a 28-year-old is not a true firm believer.
Well, you can't go against your word.
it
It's not godly.
right, and it was on a deep level too because the people who sent her away were her own parents,
Oh,
and
okay. Jeez.
she she was sent away to live with her brother in Arizona
Yeah. For
for
those
a
who don't know,
decent
we're
amount of
talking about a
time.
church in New Jersey who's or New York, um, now being sent across the country to Arizona.
Yes, she had been attending a community college
Okay.
during this time, and she met someone and engaged in a tryst of sorts, fling, sh- short-term physical relationship, and I believe the discovery of that is ultimately what caused this holdup in the uh, in the engagement,
Okay.
um, and
Was
that
that kind of
ultimately when she
was that kind of like a desperate effort on her part to just like anything to make it so this won't
Oh,
happen?
100%. For sure that's
Yeah.
what she's doing. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, and when she
Yeah,
did get sent away, it
you
was with
can't
the
blame
intent.
her all for what she was doing. She's
No,
trying to get out of this.
absolutely not. Absolutely
Oh,
not.
absolutely,
I don't
absolutely,
at all.
Huh. Yeah. So even if you don't know exactly what's going through her mind, if it's at that point, at this point when she breaks it off, or when she breaks it off, when she has the fling, um, she's trying to find any possible way of getting out of this marriage commitment with Nathan.
Yep.
yes,
So it's if you have eyes to see, it is clear that she is crying for help.
Yes.
absolutely,
Okay. And then the elders and then her parents then look at her and blame her and then go send her to get reformed
yes,
and saved from not wanting to marry a pedophile.
yes, and I do remember there being um, some sadness for Nathan
Oh, of course.
from
Yep. Broken
the
off
parents,
engagement. Yep.
right? And it was that was very very shocking to me, as seeing her treated the way that she was for just having an opinion, free will, uh,
And being an underage girl
and being
engaged
an
to a
underage
pedophile.
girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and an underage girl on her way to adulthood because she was attending community college,
Yeah.
and I mean, she was getting into the world more and expanding her understanding. And it was probably absolutely terrifying heading towards that, realizing what you were in.
hmm
Mm.
hmm
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean there's a lot more that's going into this, and there is, as I said at the beginning of this, there's currently a trial in the OPC against Tom that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of anything against Nathan as of right now, but there is one against Tom. Um, so before we end this, can you talk directly to Calvary OPC in Schenectady? I don't know how to say the word Schenectady. Am I saying it right?
Schenectady. Schenectady.
Schenectady. Okay. Schenectady. All right, I got that. I'm a SoCal kid born and raised, and I don't know all the Northeast all the
It's a weird
Northeast
one.
language. But can you talk directly to this because we know the moment this gets out, they're gonna listen to it. OPC is gonna listen to it. We're gonna catch their gaze and ire. Can you talk to the session, to Tom, to Nathan, to the presbytery, kind of all related bodies in one, and let them know, it's like, hey, this is what you did to my friend. This is what you did to us. This is what you did to the church, or to yourselves as well. Can you talk to them directly on what they should be doing and what they have failed to do?
What they
I
should be
I
doing is getting help. No, well, Tom needs to step down at the very least. As a pastor, Tom, you have an obligation to protect or look out for your flock. And you did the exact opposite over and over and over again for years. Um, and you weren't you weren't just a wolf in sheep's clothing. You were a wolf in shepherd's clothing, which is worse because we all thought that we could look to you for protection to do, to look out for us. And you took full advantage of that to do the opposite.
I feel similarly. And to Tom, he was in a position of power, a position of that can do a lot of good, and he had the chance to be an example to other men in this church. Um, his Your predecessor was 10 times better in every single way, uh, effortlessly, and to contribute to a generation of men or young men growing up into this culture, treating your daughters, your women, thinking of women like this, speaking about women like this, um, not allowing human beings to be human beings. It's um, it's sickening, and he shouldn't be allowed to teach anybody.
No.
Hmm.
As far as the session goes,
Mhm.
the session are complicit because they're hypocrites who easily adapt to best fall where the balance of power rests in their favor. If it's advantageous to ascribe to this concept that it's okay for a 27-year-old man to date a minor, and it keeps me in my seat in the session, and I can tell this young girl, yes, that you're in the right place and this is what you should be doing, then you have just as much responsibility because they're the sub shepherds, and we were guided by these members of the session and educated by them, and they too fed the same poison into their children in the church.
Um, as of last fall, I was sent pictures of this, some screenshots from the worship service at Calvary OPC, and it um, looks like Nathan is still leading stuff. Nathan is still in good standing at the
Oh
church.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
Um,
Wow.
I'm
Yep. I when first kind of reached out to me, I was feeling spicy and I went on, I think it was their Facebook, and I left a really nice review of their church. But when I was like kind of looking through, Nathan's up there almost every week leading worship.
oh, okay.
Yeah, leading prayer, leading worship. And it's just like You all know who this man is.
Oh, so they since know all the stuff that he was doing,
I don't know how much, I mean, even if they don't know about the
but
physical,
they know that he was a
they know
pedophile.
they know he's a pedophile. There's no way to sugarcoat it. The man that they sanctioned being interested in a romantic relationship with a little girl
Yeah.
20 years ago is now leading worship in their church. It's right out in the open.
Yep. And I don't want to presume, but the studies on pedophilia are rather striking. If somebody has had one relationship with one girl, there's a decent chance, and I don't want to judge him prematurely, assuming he's done other things, but it's hard not to when you've seen all the studies on
Right.
pedophilia, on abuse, on rape, on everything else.
Right.
It's hard not to assume he's done this to other girls as
Right.
well.
And he would have had every opportunity because he's been a school teacher for pretty much this whole time. I believe he
Okay.
was, at least for a long while, he was a school teacher. He has many young children. And
He's had
he's,
very a lot of access.
yeah.
Okay. And he's
Yep.
had unlimited access, unscreened, unsupervised access for 20 plus years.
Yep.
That's accurate.
Okay. So now for you talked about Tom. Now the last one. Talk to the OPC because there is currently no case against Nathan that I'm aware of, and the OPC there's one against Tom, which is how we got connected. Um, but we want to push this towards Nathan and get something happening about this, even beyond the ecclesiastical level. Um, Talk to the OPC about. And we know more than just Nathan and the OPC. There's more stories that we're going to come out with in the OPC and other denominations. But they have this person who's, like you said, Brittany, currently leading and in the front of the worship space every Sunday, leading worship. They have a pedophile leading worship every morning at Calvary OPC in Schenectady. Um, Talk to the OPC. What should they be doing? I mean, even if let's cast them in the kindest light we can. Let's say they didn't know about this and now they do know about this. What should they do?
Well, the OPC as a denomination needs to seriously evaluate which of their doctrines keeps making it a comfortable place for abusers and pedophiles to flourish. And they need to purge those doctrines. And when they have known pedophiles in their midst, known abusers in their midst, they need to boot them. They need to remove them and support the the survivors, the victims, not support the perpetrators. They need to remove the perpetrators and help the victims. They've got it so backwards. But it stems from doctrine. The OPC needs to examine their doctrine and figure out what parts of their doctrine are making it so comfy for these kinds of people. And they need to change it. They need to reevaluate it and make it so that their doctrine doesn't make it a safe space for abusers and pedophiles.
Yep. Amen. Chase.
I agree very much with that. It's going to have to be a shift, a massive shift in what's taught and practiced. I was excommunicated because I divorced someone, and yet this guy is allowed to be with around children still now. It's it's not hard to get that story that we just talked about out. It's there. To not know that that person shouldn't be doing what he's doing is almost sinful in and of itself on a moral level. What I see these Brittany, watching Brittany grow up, hearing her be told that she's not allowed to have a door, I, privacy gone. It's slavery. You're enslaving people in faith. And that's one of the most heinous things that you can do, is allow people in positions of power to abuse this, and abuse it in a forum where there's no accountability for what you do because you are the highest power.
Yeah. They would say they have accountability because it's the Presbyterian form of government, and the Presbyterian form of government is the most accountable form of government because we make sure, at least supposedly doctrinally, things are taken care of. But like you said, you set it up in a certain way to where your Presbyterian form of government keeps those in power still in power.
Right.
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 And if people are allowed to make it to positions where they're leading worship for the church and these kinds of things are coming out, there's no oversight, and there's no there's no inspection of the process of what's going on in your church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's not really a question, but as we end, um, is there anything you want those listening to know? Whether I covered it, whether you guys covered it or not, anything that is particularly on your hearts as it relates to Nathan or Tom or this church in general, or what you've seen, what you've heard, what's happened to you, anything you'd like to leave this episode with.
This experience, this what we're talking about, has heavily influenced me as a parent and as a person in my life. And I made it a point to be as empathic and attentive as I can with my daughters, uh, introspective into my own actions, to do all the exact opposite things that I could to make some kind of atonement for having experienced that myself, because there's a certain amount of self-loathing that comes from having been, even though I had no control as a child. But it heavily influenced me to deny that its existence, and from structure to mindset.
Yeah. Brittany, anything you want to end this with?
No, I don't think so. I think we
Oh,
covered most of it.
yeah. Well, thank you both. Thank you both a lot. And you're not the only two witnesses that we have for this. We've been set up with more witnesses that we'll be talking to. And OPC, others in the Northeast, if you're listening, no, this is not the only episode that's coming out. We will have more until you guys do something. So thank you both so much for speaking out, for being part of this, for your bravery, for your courage, for your transparency. And the hope is that this does something. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.